Welcome to Open Tables. With your hosts, Cynthia Sue Larson.
That it's okay for everybody to change. It's okay to let things go. And that's really powerful.
Christopher Anatra.
The universe is based on commerce. You know me as the quantum businessman.
Jerry Hicks.
I feel like I've woken up in a parallel dimension where everybody's exactly the same. They look the same memories generally speaking, but they're different.
And Shane Robinson.
Nobody has all the answers, so everybody's welcome to share their ideas, and it really expands our consciousness when we do that.
Open Tables. Unique perspectives for a new view of reality.
And welcome to our special Thanksgiving episode of Open Tables. I'm Cynthia Sue Larson, and I'm the president of International Mandela Effect Conference. And today, joining me, we also have, go ahead and bring the next person in, Christopher Anatra, the quantum businessman.
Hi, Cynthia. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
Chris.
Happy
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving week. And also today we've got Shane Robinson, the Unbiased and on the fence. Excellent. So let's go ahead and start with our disclaimer notice before we get into what's going to be on the show today. The content you are about to watch is meant for thought and consideration. Please be respectful of each other and opinions shared. This is a safe space to express thoughts, ideas, and information. Please note that no copyright infringement is intended with regard to inclusion of short excerpts of material that are included in accordance with the fair use under section 107, yeah, it is 107 of the Copyright Act. Got small print both on my hand printout and the screen. Okay, next slide, please. So today we have a very exciting show for you, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for contributing to us. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And of course, you can always at any point send a super sticker, super chat of any kind, and join us in the chat for the conversation. We'll have Q&A at the end for questions and answers. The first thing we'll be talking about today is our pandemic special. We'll explain what that is, and we'll talk about how we have a special benefit going in conjunction with that. Our second topic will be this episode's sponsors, and we've got some fabulous ones for you today. It's always a high point of every show. I really look forward to it myself. Third, we've got something called the Robinson Effect, which I'll explain. A fun surprise for you. And then to balance that out, we'll talk about the new Jfk Assassination Mandela Effect. And fourth, we'll have the Thanksgiving Mandela Effects, which is probably what you tuned in for today. Fifth, we'll have updates from myself, Jerry, who can't be with us in person, but he'll explain and catch you up to what's going on. Shane and Chris, and then finally the Q&A. So let's see the next slide, please. And of course, Heather's with us. Thank you, Heather. Okay, I love this slide that Heather just put together. Maybe, does anybody want to turn it over?
Yeah, Chris, explain that.
Yeah, I would like to explain this because this is kind of like a little outrageous, right? To see the Beatles wearing, in this case, smog masks because of how bad the smog was in the Liverpool area or someplace in England when they were doing a concert. But yeah, I think the Chris and Cynthia one might be, we might have to switch that one around. But Jerry, plays the part of George. He's the smoker in the group, so to speak. And then Shane is Ringo, and I think myself, I would be more John Lennon, and Cynthia would be Paul McCartney. But in any event, yeah. So this is a special version of Open Tables that we put together about the pandemic. And a lot of people have seen the trailer that we put together about what happened in 2009 and all these different changes and so forth. So yeah, I don't know if you guys want to add anything to what we're talking about.
I love the comments already that are coming in on that trailer. There's so many comments, people saying like, I remember that there had been a swine flu, but I sure don't remember that it was ever called the P word, you know, like it had gotten so bad that it was, you know, just endemic all around the planet, or that our leaders of state of California, United States, and so forth were declaring this such a huge emergency. The scale of it seems very different than what I remember. And the mask wearing, different.
There's a lot of parallels as well that we cover with what's happening now and some of the previous stuff, even beyond the 2009 swine flu in that episode. So definitely a great conversation that we can't really have here on YouTube, unfortunately, but it's definitely worth watching, in my opinion.
And some of the same cast of characters, which I thought was shocking and strange and surprising. And a really powerful 60 Minutes episode, which actually had excellent journalism, which it's amazing to see that in action, to see people saying things that are not some part of some script where you can just flip channels and they all say the same thing. Yep. And then you wonder, like, how is this possibly good journalism? How can this be thoughtful? You know, where's the thought? Where's the science, really? So it's such an excellent episode in these regards that we've taken some wonderful research. Chris did a fantastic job finding quite a number of these sources for us. So thanks, Chris, for helping pull it together. And Jerry, I know he'd have some juicy things to say. I don't know what, but
he did.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, one of the things too that was interesting is when we were putting this information together, one of the things that I discovered was someone her name was Brandy Vaughn. And she started an organization called Learn the Risk. She worked for Merck Pharmaceutical. She was kind of an insider that came out and was very outspoken that parents should learn the risks of vaccinations for their children. And she really some great information that she had put together. Unfortunately, on December 7th of last year, she was found dead. And the group that she formed, Learn the Risk, they've been doing some fundraising and some charity work because they want to keep her life's mission alive. And one of the things that we've been talking about was being able to, so we have this Patreon channel that we've started, and people, you can donate and watch the special we put together. And we want to be able to donate the proceeds of that to her organization. So we were thinking about anyone that signs up with our Patreon account between now and Christmas, we would donate 100% to the Learn the Risk organization. And then if you wanted to also donate yourself independently, you can go to learntherisk.org. And of course, you put in whatever donation you want. But her work was really valuable because she wanted to educate people, give them another perspective, just like what we're doing here with the Mandela Effect. A lot of times, I know myself, probably people that are watching this too, you know about the Mandela Effect. It affects your life. You can see it clearly, but then you feel like you get gaslighted by, you know, science or the educated community is, you know, so forth. So just as she wanted people to learn those risks, we want people to understand about the Mandela Effect and understand that it is a phenomenon that does actually affect a lot of people and has served a really good purpose, in my mind anyway, of waking people up to what reality actually is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is such a good opportunity for people to dive a little bit deeper into not just what happened back then. We use a time travel. I'm not going to give that away, but we do zip around through time in this special that we put together. And so what you can watch right now on YouTube is just a little overview of some of the highlights of what's in our special about this swine flu. But we go pretty deep and we have a lot of fun with it. So highly recommend, please do join our Patreon, and then you get a chance to check that out. And we'd love to hear from you too. And thanks to everyone who's been leaving comments on that little trailer for the swine flu episode for our special.
It's funny too how some people, I saw like one of the comments, someone thought that we might have like made up those things. They were so, it was so unbelievable to hear like Obama talking about the vaccination program. Like they thought we might have made it up. And it's like, nope, this is all stock footage you can find. Dr. Fauci was a big celebrity back in 2009, 2010. He was on the news and stuff all the time, etc.
I don't remember that. I sure don't remember that. So he's new to a lot of us.
I know, exactly, exactly. So, and I think that we're in the next week or so, we're going to be posting 2 more trailers. So you'll get a little bit more of a flavor for what this is all about, what we're talking about with this pandemic special. And part of it too, oh, I said the P word, sorry. Part of what we're doing too is it's our first venture into Patreon land to be able to like raise some funds for the work that we do. And we're not asking for a lot, but if everyone provides a little, it just helps us with our production costs. And then we probably will at some point do more edgy stuff that we put on our Patreon channel that may not be good for like the regular public to see, or we could be shut down because of censorship.
Right. But we do believe in science. We believe in taking science a little farther, like some of you who really appreciated our Tom Campbell show last month. And we really appreciate all the comments on that too. So yeah, that's what we're doing. We're planning to do a lot more of it going forward. Anything else we want to say about the special, Shane, or any other thoughts?
No, I think it's great. Definitely something that the viewers will definitely enjoy. I'm looking forward to the trailers too. That'll give them a better taste too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, let's roll forward to the next slide, please. And here we have the first sponsor of our day. This is Rainbow Island, and I'm going to try to pronounce this, and I may butcher it, but it looks like maybe it's Hormuz Island or Hormuz. I'm not sure. Hormuz Island. Anyway, it's located 8 kilometers off of Iran's coast in the Persian Gulf. And what's really unusual here is that layers of shale, clay, and iron-rich volcanic rocks glow in dazzling shades that you can see in this illustration of red, yellow, and orange due to more than 70 minerals. So the other thing that I think is exceptional about this, and maybe I should turn this over to you, Chris, because you did so much research here, but this is the only edible island in the world as far as
Yummy. It looks delicious.
I know, right? Because the island is mostly formed of salt, which is like really amazing. So yeah, it's considered the only edible island. And what's interesting too about this whole concept of rainbows, like the Rainbow Mountains of China, you know, the Rainbow River, the rainbow trees, a lot of us, like myself included, had always been searching for rainbow things, like cloud bows and rainbow this and rainbow that. I never came across the Rainbow Island before. So you think that's something that would have popped up in my reality, especially as I was searching for these things. But now the Rainbow Island is a thing, and it's quite incredible. And it includes 2 things that are really cool. It has a star fort, which is called the Portuguese Castle. And for those of you that watch my videos, you know that I'm all into star forts and what's the real purpose of a star fort? You know, is it possible that it could be protecting a stargate? What's a stargate? You know, all those types of concepts. So this island has a star fort called the Portuguese Castle. And I looked at other places that talk about star forts, like there's websites out there that talk about star forts a lot. This island never came up, Hormuz Island. I still can't find any information about it. So I think for people that are looking for where's the latest star fort, here you go. And there's another section on here called the Valley of the Statues. We've got a couple of slides. We're going to talk about the Portuguese Castle and the Valley of the Statues. But it's this is a really cool island. It's really, really cool.
I love how it's made of salt, right in time for Thanksgiving. You know, can't pass this island, but it's but somehow we passed over it in the past. We didn't hear about the rainbow, didn't hear about salt, didn't hear about the next slide, please. Let's go there. Yes, this is amazing. Now, I think anyone looking at this picture, you can see the shape of a head of a creature there. It looks very much to me like a dragon. So, and apparently this has not been carved. It's not been tampered with. It's just a natural formation, one of many. So it's not just one dragon.
Yeah, can we go full for this one? That is right dead center. It's like a side profile of what looks to be a dragon. It almost looks like wings towards the bottom and the neck curving around and everything. I can see that whole thing there. I hope they can make that out. Okay.
Yeah, when you see that, you can't help but think dragon. That looks
Yeah.
like a dragon. Absolutely.
It's even got the eye and the little
eye, the
teeth
head.
groove and all of that. Yeah. That's
Absolutely.
This is
This is
totally
special.
something that I would have heard about. I mean, I'm sure that we would have heard about a dragon island on rainbows with a star castle. It's just incredible.
That you could eat.
I know. It sounds like a child's wonderland.
Exactly.
You can eat, but you'll turn to stone.
Yeah, right.
So let's go to the next slide because this is super interesting. And Chris, do you want to take us through this? And we could blow it up the slide up too, but big bit if you want, whichever.
Yeah, so in the northern part of Rainbow Island, Hormuz Island, is a star fort called the Portuguese Castle. It's also called the Fort of Our Lady of the Conception. It was cut off from the rest of the island by a moat. And one of the things that I find really interesting too about this is that when you look this up in Wikipedia, when you look at Portuguese Castle, it'll refer to the Tartars, where around the year 1300, the Tartarians were trying to capture this island for whatever reason. We're not quite sure what that could be. But one of the things that's interesting is about how the Tartarian Empire seems to be becoming slowly and more part of the historical record of what actually happened. So again, the Tartarian Empire, so many people make videos about it. A lot of my videos include it, but it was a very special part of history that appears to have been erased or attempted to be erased, which is now coming back. And when I talk about the Tartarian Empire, I talk about it being an offshoot of Atlantis and having a lot of like technology and that type of a thing. So yeah, this Rainbow Island, if there's a way to go there, like we should like go.
Yeah, totally. It sounds so exciting, but it was never any kind of tourist destination that I've heard of. And maybe that's because it's small. There could be lots of reasons, but you know, nowadays the world is so small. It seems like everything has compressed in a sense. So most of us would have heard of something like this. How about you, Shane? Did you ever hear of this?
No, definitely not. And it's like all of it together. It's like, wow, it's one thing would have got my attention, I would think, but I can't be sure of it. You know, it can't be 100%er, but I've definitely never heard of all this. And I would have been interested in it. And look at that crane. I was looking at that crane in that image reminds me of some of the artwork you've seen at these like world fairs where they have this technology that, you know, we've never really heard about. Have you guys seen some of those photos like that where, you know, world fairs from like long ago, and it seemed like they had technology that, you know, seemed ahead of their time. So it kind of reminds me of that. A huge crane there.
Exactly. Way ahead of their time. A lot of the world's fairs were like built in record time, like amazing structures with glass. How did they roll the glass with the technology back then? How did they deliver it? How did they put it in place? Like there's so many things. And then shortly after the World's Fair, it would like be destroyed somehow. So a lot of the World's Fairs are very interesting.
And that crane is huge. That looks like it's made to like really lift something big, high off and over the wall, and, you know.
Yeah, so if it had a moat around it, probably that might have been a chief way to bring things in or out, you know, around, you know, to get over the moat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it seems interesting that this was something that was considered a target. It was some place that the Tartarians felt was important enough to consider, you know, coming after it. And you're right, the Tartarians, that's something I've not really heard about until last few years. So it's new to me, this whole chapter in history.
Do we know if this is a tourist destination?
Absolutely. It's 100% tourist destination. You'll find a lot of sites where especially Europeans will go to visit the island. They do, I forget what they call it when you have different colors of sand and you make like beautiful designs from it. They do that on the beach there. Like I've seen pictures, and people can look this up.
Oh, like mandala with the.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So they would take different parts of the island at the different colors and make beautiful patterns from it, like huge on the beach. So it's quite the island with a lot of like very unique history. And then just something I'll mention that some people may want to just be aware of. A lot of times too, where there are star forts and stargates, there is a concept that if you control the stargate, you can control that part of the world or that territory, so to speak. So that could also be a motivating reason why certain countries and governments and militaries like always wanted to claim authority over a stargate, because almost like you're playing, liken it to a game, but also like if you could have a stronghold there, then you could like have a footprint and a dominance over a certain area. Just some of the things that I'm starting to learn about.
And often these places are situated on top of ley lines or energy grid lines. So some of the sacred sites of indigenous peoples would be built over. Cathedrals would be placed on top of them, because when you douse it, you can sense like, oh, this is where the energy lines intersect. Like in England, they've got the Michael and Mary lines, the masculine and feminine energy lines that crisscross back and forth over each other many times, often over places like Avebury Henge and so forth, Royston cathedrals. This is probably something similar with the star fort. I haven't doused it, so I don't know, but fascinating. Yeah, this is really cool.
It is.
Okay, well, as long as we're on the color theme, let's go to our next slide and take a look at something that has a lot of color. This is our sponsor number 2, and it's the golden ginkgo tree at a Buddhist temple in China. And we love to talk about our golden timeline, keep it positive here with IMEC. So keeping a focus on how good can it get, on focusing on making sure that we're seeing evidence that things are going in a good direction despite what it may appear. And I think when we look at the age of this tree, 1,400 years old, that's got to be some kind of a record. I know there are old trees on the planet, but this has got to be one of the oldest I've heard of. And
Those
it
leaves
grows.
are beautiful.
Yeah, they're so gorgeous. And Shane, you have a tree that's got yellow leaves that sometimes, when the sun is just right, looks gold, right?
Oh yeah, it's not, you know, that beautiful ginkgo tree, but it's in the morning the sunrise hits it and it's like it's so yellow. The leaves are just yellow, but it looks so golden in that morning sunshine, especially now in the fall when it's like it just blankets the front yard. And you know.
Well, this tree was said to have been planted by the Emperor Li Shimin, the second ruler of the Tang dynasty, which goes back to the years it goes way back, 600 to 900, basically. And this tree is growing next to a temple. So this is obviously a pilgrimage site for many people in the Zhongmen Mountains. And the temple allows up to 3,000 people to see the tree each day. But because so many people want to see it, many more than can come, they have online registration just to see this beautiful tree at this time when the leaves are so golden. And it's such a beautiful reminder to all of us of just nature's majesty, as well as some of these wonders of the world that can be quite natural. And I think some of these are my favorites personally. You know, the things like the salt island with the rainbow colors, and now this golden tree. Anything else you want to add, Chris?
I was just going to say, when you look at this particular picture, you just see how it pops right out of the whole area. It's just like, wow, look at this. This is very special. So, you know, if I lived in the area, I'd like to see it. But of course, I have to have internet access because an online reservation is required because so many people want to see it. But yeah, it's beautiful. And to me, it's just another reminder of the golden timeline. So I've very much appreciated this. And for some people, you may have always heard about this golden ginkgo tree. For myself, I had never heard about this before. And it also reminds me of that there's a nutritional supplement called ginkgo biloba that is for brain health, that increases mitochondria within the brain. So yeah, I think there might be some kind of connection between awareness and
memory too, I think.
And
right?
memory,
Yep.
Remembering who you are.
Mhm.
Like, I think those types of concepts are going to be happening more and more to us in the weeks and months ahead. I love this.
Yeah, it's just
Remembering the
beautiful.
old timelines, right?
Yes, exactly, because that's what we're doing with the Mandela Effect, is remembering things a little differently. Sometimes we remember things that never did exist. or supposedly never did exist, but many of us remember it that way. So
Oh, yeah.
awesome. Well, I think that's it for our sponsors. So let's move to the next slide, which is where we will give you the updates. And I'll start first. It's been a busy month for me. I'm definitely feeling like myself again. So back on track, back on the road, doing things. And I did a workshop on the Ascension, what it is, what it isn't. And it was a live event, but it was recorded. So all of my slides and everything is available for purchase if anybody still wants to find out how to thrive in this time of awakening, this time of ascension that we're in. The other big thing that happened this last month is I did a video with my take on Tom Campbell and his 4 factors involved in how he sees what's behind the Mandela Effect. And I thought that was really interesting. There's a lot of meat there in that show. So if anybody for some reason hasn't yet seen our Tom Campbell show, I highly recommend it. And then you might want to follow it up and watch my little afterward video where I got a chance to respond, because we didn't have enough time to go into everything with that Tom Campbell show. There was too much material, quite frankly. So I do go through those 4 points again, summarize what he said, and then add a little bit to each of the points. And then I've just been doing a lot of other interviews and shows and lots of stuff going on. The best way to follow what I'm doing is through my newsletter, because then I keep track. That's how I even keep track of what I'm doing. There's a lot going on every month, but it's realityshifters.com, and it's still free. You can subscribe to it or just check it out. Every issue is posted online. And next we have a wonderful surprise. Let's hear from Jerry Hicks. Thanks, Heather.
Hello, folks. My name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, or as Cynthia Sue Larson calls me, the father of IMEC, a title which I am very proud and honored to hold. I do apologize that I was not able to be there today for this very special Thanksgiving episode, as I had a previous engagement that I had to attend to, but know that I am there in heart and spirit. I would like to take just a moment to thank every single member of the Mandela Effect community. It's because of you guys we do this, and we could not be more thankful for every last one of you guys. Especially those that have helped support us both financially as well as just taking the time to watch our stuff, or the effort to share it out to the rest of the net. Thank every last one of you guys so very much from the bottom of my heart. I also would like to give a quick thank you to the most incredible team that I've ever had the opportunity of working with. That is, of course, the IMEC team, Miss Cynthia Sue Larson from realityshifters.com, a person that I could not be more proud to know and work hand in hand and side by side with for the last 2 years, as well as you know him as the quantum businessman, Mr. Christopher Anatra, another person that I could not be more proud to both know and work side by side with for the last couple of years, and a person that I knew even before IMEC, my good buddy, Mr. Shane Robinson, Unbiased and on the Fence, another person that I am more than honored and thankful to both know as a person and have the opportunity to work with on this incredible team here at IMEC. I could not express enough how thankful I am for every last one of you guys. We could not have done any of this without all of us coming together to do it for this most amazing community. I would also like to take a second to make a special shout out and thank you to our behind the scenes producer. Her name is Heather. She does the most incredible job of keeping this whole thing together, from keeping the slides on the screen to the different transitions to the video segments, everything she does behind the scenes, guys. She's the reason we're able to make these YouTube videos as smooth as we are, these live shows, I should say. So thank you once again to our behind the scenes producer, Heather, who has definitely been an unsung hero, but just the same, an amazing part of this incredible team. If you guys want to keep up with my work, check out the rippinrabbithole.com. That is RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. That is our radio network website. or the Dark Wolf's Den Show YouTube channel, BitChute channel, or Odyssey channel. You can find us on all three networks. 4 networks if you include the Rip and Rabbit Hole, right? Or the most important website of all, of course, IMEC.world, where you can find everything going on here at IMEC, past, present, and future. Once again, that is IMEC.world. Thank you once again to everyone, both here in IMEC as well as the entire Mandela Effect community. I hope everyone has a very happy and safe Thanksgiving, and I look forward to seeing you all next month. Now back to you guys, Heather, Cynthia, Chris, and Shane in the studio.
Thank you so much, Jerry. That's awesome to see him, and I am just thankful as he is for all of this team here at IMEC, because I mean, it really is. It's awesome to be able to work with such great people on something that's so important. For me, it was this huge awakening, the Mandela Effect. So I have a lot to be thankful for this year. That completely flew by. I don't know, just seeing that Christmas tree behind Jerry, I'm like scratching my head trying to figure out where the heck this last year went. But my main thing, message I would have now would probably be not to let fear control us during the holidays right now. There's a lot of fear being pushed around, and to just really enjoy this time with our family and all the things we have to be thankful for over this last year. I've been doing a little bit on the channel, doing a little music, a little bit of art, even doing my Beyond Quantum Healing, hypnosis sessions with people to help them connect to their higher consciousness. So I've been doing a lot of things and staying busy. And I'm actually running a special till the end of the year for $111 if anyone's interested in that. And you can find that on my website at uotf.net. And Chris?
I have a question for you, Shane. Yeah. Just let's say I'm someone that might be interested in like working with you for your quantum like healing. What's involved in that?
Oh, it's pretty cool. It's actually, for those who are familiar with the work of Dolores Cannon, someone that worked with her for years, a good friend of mine, Candace Crawl Goldman, developed this Beyond Quantum Healing course to help people connect to their higher consciousness. So it's almost like a guided meditation where you assist the person in their left brain, their analytical part of their brain. So you have like a consultation where you go over questions that you have, and then during the session, you can act as their left brain as they reach higher levels of consciousness through their right brain, because that's, your heart, basically. That's where your connection to your higher self is. So by doing it this way, it sort of moves the bouncer out of the way, right? Your left brain's kind of like the bouncer, like it Gotcha. Keeps you from all the magic, right? It's the gatekeeper, if you will. Makes you doubt everything and all of that. So that's what it's a great tool for, for those who don't want to do plant medicine or something like that. It's an alternative, all natural way of, taking a step further past maybe meditation or something, to have someone there to assist you on a journey of higher consciousness. It's really cool. That's cool.
How long does a typical journey last for?
Well, consultation's about an hour, and then it can be an hour or two for the actual journey. Yeah. And I record it and everything, because sometimes people won't remember aspects of it, because it can be, they can go deep, like in a dream state, and so they'll remember things later, after they hear it again. They're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Some people don't remember at all, somnambulous, but most people do. That's only like maybe 3%.
So kind of like ayahuasca without the puking.
Right. Right. Definitely.
Cool. Yeah, for myself, as always, keeping busy. I just put out a video called Gucci of the Gods, where I use the Akashic. Oh, thank you, Cynthia. I use the Akashic records to solve mysteries. This particular one about what's called the handbag of the gods and the wristwatch of the gods, because there's a common looking symbolism on hieroglyphs and monuments of these handbag looking devices. And a lot of times the Anunnaki will be pictured holding them. It could be all over the world. The Mayans have it. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey has it. There's monuments in Indonesia have it. The same exact looking handbag. So what is that handbag? What is that watch? What are those symbolisms? So using the Akashic records, using soft disclosure, using what we know from theoretical physics and science, put that all together, and made it a very interesting presentation. So that's something that I'm most proud of, and going to be working on some more of what I call these concept type things, so that people can understand concepts about reality and different symbolisms and what they mean and so forth. So as always, keep them busy with those things.
That one is super interesting to me because it contained interviews, snippets with Alan Guth, who's a physicist I've mentioned from time to time. But also you brought in soft disclosure from science fiction. So it's kind of like, it's so cool. It's like my favorite thing, science fiction and science fact all together with this ancient mystery. So I really do recommend people check that out. And then I did a bit of a response to that because I thought it was so amazing. Just it bubbled up lots of thoughts about what came up in your video, Chris.
Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate that. And how it's like Doctor Who's TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside than the outside.
Yeah, that's what got me super excited, because it's just like quantum. If you look at set theory, where quantum physics often is presumed, because it's physics of the very tiny, I think there's this automatic assumption people make that it's a subset of classical physics, but it really doesn't fit there. And you can derive all of quantum physics from 5 simple axioms, which means, and then if you dumb it down, you can get special cases and create our physical classical laws and our physical classical Boolean logic and all of that material realism stuff that people think is all there is to reality, but there's so much more. And so that bigger on the inside thing, whoa, what a great concept. That's huge.
Yeah. So yeah, what is out there? What is out there? So it's all part of what we're going to be learning more. I think in the future, things are coming together, and yeah, it's really cool what is made up of what our reality is actually made up about. It's a grand adventure that we're living, and I think we're all starting to get back on track, or we will start to get back on track. Remove the fear and start living life the way we're supposed to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's something that we all three of us have in common with what we've been doing, this whole quantum thing. We're looking at the bigger on the inside, or the quantum healing stuff that Shane's talking about. And yeah, it's huge. So there's a big connection, I feel, with the Mandela effect. That's just my own bias, I think, but I don't know what you guys think.
I agree, because it isn't a subjective. In fact, science is backing up that it's a subjective. There is no objective reality. It really is an individual journey for all of us here.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I just real quickly to add, like, I think what we only don't even know 1% of who we truly are. Like, there's so many other parts of ourselves that are out there having experiences and so forth. Yeah, we're just beginning to like realize that there's so much more that we don't even know about yet.
Yeah, before we went on camera today, we were talking off camera. Shane brought up that there are some more physiological changes with the neck, and we may cover them with images later. But that's so interesting. I was just noticing with my own neck, it's different. And you notice if you ever palpate yourself or give yourself a neck or shoulder massage, and then it's like, this feels different. That's the kind of thing we're talking about with the Mandela effect. What's different about experiencers is we remember that it was different. Whereas a lot of people are not yet recognizing that for a variety of reasons.
Absolutely.
Yeah, super cool. Oh, we can just talk, share notes. We'll let's continue with our program because we've got more to cover. So let's go to the next slide, please. Oh, yes. Wow. Love it. The Robinson effect. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, this is... Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, if you want to start, Shane.
Yeah, so I got to explain this. When I was first making the channel, I created this logo. This was, it didn't have the flower of life around it yet. I added that later, but the main center part there was just as it is. And while I was creating it, I added an and sign right in the center of the, the unbiased and on the fence lines there. And it was like sort of an athletic gold, like a kind of a school bus color and sign, and it kind of overlapped both lines. I didn't like how it looked, so I turned that layer off, and I never published it anywhere. No one ever saw it except for me.
Show of hands of someone who's seen it. Show of hands.
So if you remember seeing that and sign, you remember a timeline where evidently I decided I liked it, and I put it out there. So it's never existed out there. You won't find a version of it. In fact, I looked for my original Photoshop file just to be able to show you guys, and I don't. It's on a hard drive somewhere. I just got to find it. You know.
And I believe you totally, but I have seen it, which is
Right.
impossible.
Right. It's impossible. Yeah.
In fact, not only have I seen it in the middle, I saw it there, and then for some reason you revised it and moved the and over to this, like you didn't like it or something. So then you moved it to the right.
Yes.
And then it moved
I
back.
think I tried that. I think
Yes.
I tried that. And
Yes.
right before I turned that layer off.
I've
That's
seen
so
Exactly.
weird.
I saw in the center, to the right, and back to the center. And now it's this. And now you say it's never been any of the others.
That's almost what I did while I was creating it. Like, let's put it over here. And let's just turn that off. So I don't know. It's like
And you
timelines
Chris,
were sprouting, you know?
Yeah, Chris, you remember this too, right?
I remembered exactly the way you do, Cynthia. And I was wondering, like, how come Shane keeps changing his logo?
I
He
know.
keeps
Why
changing
can't we?
his mind where he
It's-
wants to put the ampersand. Yeah, I definitely remember it in the center. I definitely remember it on the right. Absolutely. It was bigger. It was actually a little bit bigger in the center from what I remember.
Yeah, it was bigger, and then it's smaller
Yeah.
when it moved to the right, and then
And it was like gold. Yeah, it was a gold color.
You guys are tripping me out because I think when I put it over there, I'm like, well, let's try it a little smaller. I mean, that's so weird. It's like it sprouted out a timeline at every little
my
choice
gosh.
I made, and you guys are remembering those, but I never published it on my current timeline of wherever my
people are
consciousness.
If anyone's watching right now, go ahead and put in the chat what you remember, and also if it's past the live stream, put it in a comment. We'd love to hear what you remember about this Robinson effect. This is so
Oh,
cool.
Willie's in here. Yep, Willie remembers it. He's been with me for a while, so.
They want you to put it back. Put the ampersand back. Confuse us all.
That's what, I just redid the logo with new colors that print a little bit better, and I tried it again, and I was like, no, and then it just confused people because people remember it, and then let's just leave it as a Mandela effect, and I didn't. So my new version, I tried it again and still didn't like it.
This is so cool.
You
I
know,
love it because this is such a real-time example, and we get a chance to hear from people. Did Willie say it was in the middle or on the right or both, like I remember?
Oh, are we stuck with Shane 2.0?
we
We
got
love
the new
Shane.
Shane.
Well, yeah,
Where do you remember it, Willie? We'll see what he remembers. Alva remembers it. Yeah.
Cool.
Most people I talk to remember it in the center, but that's interesting you said on the right because I'm like, I think I did
I
try
saw
it
it.
over there.
It's like you weren't quite happy with the center. It's like Chris and I both remember that.
That is so wild.
Uh-huh.
Started in the middle, Willie said. That's so crazy. Just
It
like you
did
guys
start in the
remember
middle.
it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow, Lewis Carroll definitely had an and sign in there. That's so wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
The trip.
Very trippy, very cool.
Good intel though. I mean, that's good data right there. For me anyway, from my point of view, because I remember that part. Of course, anybody else can think, you're just fibbing. But no, I'm just,
And this
completely
is what we love
100% honest.
Yeah, we love this about the IMEC community with to have this opportunity to take a look honestly at a situation like this and describe what are we noticing. And there's no benefit in we're not to making it up or
Right.
it's just honestly what we're noticing and why this of all things. And then we find out this is something Shane seriously was considering. So it's like there were timelines, possible realities where he just went with it, like and then decided don't like in the center, moving it to the right. Didn't like that. Back to the center.
Yeah. And you'd be able to go. That's the whole thing. That's you'd be able to go to the beginning and see all the videos because you can't like re-edit the logos in them, so you can see it's always been as it is, even though that's what you clearly remember, that and sign in the middle. And I'm looking at the brown. I'm like, I think that brown's a little redder than I remember. I mean, that brown looks slightly, I don't know.
Yeah, that is so cool. I love this. This is one of those things you start loving it when you get used to the Mandela effect. Then.
Absolutely.
Having fun with it. Okay, cool. Any other thoughts on this one? Any other?
I do.
Go ahead.
The second bullet point, is it ampersand or ampersand? Now, in my old timeline, it was always ampersand. So, and, in programming, you use different symbols on the keyboard and so forth. So I always would hear the word ampersand. I would see it written, the symbol for it. So when I was looking this up and it was spelled ampersand, I'm like, well, to me, that's a Mandela effect. I don't know if that's true for anyone else, but it was always more of a stand for me than sand.
Just again, we can have people put it in the chat or the comments. Yeah, for me, I just only remember the sand, but that doesn't discount what you're saying at all.
Right.
That's what's so cool about the Mandela effect.
Yeah.
I believe you.
Okay, some people remember it as ampersand the way it is now. Okay.
Okay, that's okay. Doesn't mean it wasn't also stand in some realities.
Yeah.
Very cool. This is so cool. Okay. Well, let's go to our next slide because we still have a lot of material to cover. Haven't even gotten to the Thanksgiving, but
I know, right?
Before we get there, I know. But first, we got something cool.
We're like halfway,
People-
so time-wise.
Yeah, we're doing great. This particular illustration, this slide has to do with the JFK assassination. We just came up on an anniversary of that sad day, and I think it was November 20th. Am I right? That was
22nd.
Okay, the 20th.
It was actually yesterday.
Yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
58
Wow.
years. 58 years ago.
But in our hearts in America, this is like it was yesterday. I think so many people still feel such a sense of loss associated with this. Anyway, so there's something new here. Maybe if you'd like to lead the way through this, Chris, because this is a little complicated.
Yeah, because this one like blew my mind, because anyone that knows me knows that like the JFK assassination and that whole thing was something that I've looked at since I was a teenager, been very intrigued by the whole concept. The Zapruder film by Abraham Zapruder was like obviously like a milestone as far as like documenting what happened. We could kind of see it frame by frame. The fact that there could be another film like that like blew my mind. And someone had mentioned it. I did a podcast with my friend Sean Bond the other week, and someone mentioned there was a second amateur type film like the Zapruder film. So I did some research on it, and there was this guy named Orville Nix. He bought at the time a new 8mm video camera, and he also filmed it, but from a different angle, from the angle where you could see up into the grassy knoll. And we do have a video here. So it's the video. When we play it, we could probably talk over it because it's the same video. It's like maybe 5 seconds, but they just keep recycling it.
And it's not too graphic, so we don't have to have everybody leave.
I don't think it's too graphic.
No, it's just distant.
It's from the opposite way. In fact, can't you see Zapruder in the background filming it from the other direction?
Yes.
I believe you can.
Yes,
That's
you can actually
amazing.
see Zapruder filming it. This is like, I can't tell you how important this is. And they actually say this was the second, after the Zapruder film, this is the second most important documentation of what happened that day.
And so just the fact that this film is showing up is striking. And of course, there's always that conversation about how many people were in the vehicle. So we've got lots of things to look at here.
Yeah, because that's actually that's the first thing that, like, literally the first thing that woke me up was when I was watching the JFK assassination, and it went from 4 people in the car to this funky car with 6 people inside of it. Like that really, I was like, what is going on? I thought it was a completely fake film. Like some people tried to recreate it and they did it all wrong with too many people in the car, in a weird kind of car. So for me, the JFK thing has a lot of meaning, because I knew it almost frame by frame. All the things that happened to him, like where the different wounds are, happened completely differently. This film also leads more so that we understand what happened on the grassy knoll, so to speak, because we have more documentation about that. It goes on and on. I feel like we're in a timeline where we're getting more disclosure type events. Like we're in a timeline where we're beginning to question authority, question the global narrative. Like when we can see all these things for ourselves. Before, like in my old timeline, there wasn't a lot of information besides the Zapruder film. There wasn't a lot. It was all crazy conspiracy theories. Now it seems like there's so much more that's coming to light about all this. And
what's the release date on this Nix film? Like when was it officially? When supposedly was it available to the public? It's new for me. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I think it was in '63. Well, what happened was,
but I mean, was it made publicly available? People knew about it.
As far as I know, I think in '65 they were already talking about it. For some reason, they didn't allow it into the Warren Commission. It gets very interesting. On that slide, I'm just going to go through a couple more bullet points and then go into a little bit more about this as time permits. But this film by Orville Nix, and a name like Orville Nix, you're not going to forget, like Orville Rettenbacher, Orville, like the Nix film, the Orville Nix film. It's only like a few seconds of it, but Orville, he had a 4th grade education. However, he worked as an HVAC engineer near Dealey Plaza, where the event happened. He brought the film to the FBI on December 1st, 1963. 3 days later, it was returned to him, but he said it wasn't the original film. It was like a copy of the original film, which is really interesting because I believe in 1992, Orville's daughter sued the FBI to get the original film back. The FBI launched an investigation and said they lost it. So again, just adding more intrigue to the whole thing. There's all these rabbit holes you can start to go down after this particularly happened. And one of the things that Orville said, as well as a lot of the eyewitnesses now, that I'm uncovering so much information about eyewitness accounts that happened. They all say the shots came from the grassy knoll, or some of them did anyway. So there is one more video here. It's about a minute, but it's Orville himself talking about his experience back in, I think it was in 65 or 66, he was interviewed about his film. There is a little bit of music that's loud in the background, but if we listen to it, it'll give us some insights about who Orville was and what he actually saw. So,
Depository building. No.
At that time, that the shots came from the book depository building.
No, I thought it came from a fence. Between the book depository and the railroad track. Does anyone else who you know, who's spoken with, also believe the shots came from there? Most everyone thought it came from the fence behind the book depository.
Did you have occasion to speak with Forrest Sorrells, who was, of course, a friend of yours, and the Secret Service agent in charge of Dallas that day?
Yes, I did.
Did he tell you where he thought the shots came from?
He thought they were coming from the same place,
Which is?
behind the fence.
So when he says behind the fence, he's talking about at the top of the grassy knoll, there was a wooden fence back there. And there's all this evidence too, where after JFK was shot, everyone starts running up to the fence because they're like, somebody just shot the president, and they all knew where the gunshots were coming from. So they all stampeded to try to find the people that were behind it. So it's just like more disclosure, like there's disclosure. I'm finding disclosure on top of disclosure. It's super, super interesting. So interesting.
Was it a solid fence, like it was a wooden fence? Was it something that the sound could have echoed off of?
It was
If
a
at
wooden.
the right angle? Because
It was like
I've had sound bounce around to where it might seem like it's, you know what I mean? I'm just saying.
I don't know. It was like when I've seen pictures of it, it's like a wooden picket fence, like with narrow and then points of the wood, but that you could easily put a rifle like to hold it, to support the rifle to shoot through. And there's the whole thing about Umbrella Man, like that was never in my old timeline, and about how he moved the umbrella up and down. It was like a signal to the guys on the fence that the car was coming. So there's just like one thing after another, who was involved. Like I'm gonna wind up making a video about this and trying to break it down piece by piece with what I also get confirmation from the Akashic records about it. But it's really a super fascinating story. So to me, total Mandela effect. Film Total Mandela Effect.
Yeah, there's a lot here. And that video, when I was looking at it, it looked like 4 people were in the car. Was that just me? It was a little blurry and distant, but no, the first video on this page.
I didn't notice that, but we could play that again. Yeah.
Let's take a look one more time. Because I've never seen this film either. The whole thing is new. Kind of hard to tell because it's so far away.
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting. It is hard to tell. I think, do we see that little funky glass partition? That's really interesting if it's a different car.
I know. This is kind of huge.
What timeline are we in? we're in a hairball of timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely got. At the beginning, you could see Connolly and his wife.
Oh, there we
so-
go. Now we're
Okay,
zoomed
all
in.
right, they're there. Okay.
But I don't see 6 people, so I'm just saying, I don't know.
I do see the divider piece that's weird too. That wasn't on
Okay.
the original.
And
That
Shane,
little narrow glass.
you reposted a video you made about a JFK Mandela effect, right? About Connolly's wife?
Yeah, exactly. So it was in the Warren Commission files that you could see the transcripts of the 911 dispatcher, or I guess it was just radio dispatch, contacting police saying that we're going to need somebody to pick up Connolly's wife from Love Field. She's flying in from Austin into Dallas Love Field, and they need to pick her up in like an hour or something. So it's like right there in the documents. But later, the Warren Commission in parentheses added his mother, right? I guess just to make sense of it. But earlier in the transcript, it says his wife, so.
Right.
So
Interesting.
it's just sort of that weird, they noticed some weirdness there and they just tried to fix it or hide it. I don't know. It's, it just depends on whether they knew what the Mandela effect was or shifts were,
I don't think they did. And it still happens to me. We'll get to one in a couple slides. I'll talk about how I'm noticing some of this, where you notice it, you remember it both ways, and you start feeling like you're getting pulled into the reality
exactly.
of consensus, collective reality.
If anyone's interested in that, I reposted it on my community page because I did it like a couple of years ago, I think. So
we can
it'd be
also
hard
put a
to go
link
back
on
to.
this. We'll put a link on this video too.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. Great. So let's move forward to the Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Here we go. The whole reason for
Finally,
the show.
Thanksgiving.
Yay. Okay. Here we've got a picture. This is new to me. It may not be new to everyone, but that's also the nature of the Mandela effect. There are 2 babies who were now born on the Mayflower. Now that's a pretty significant birth record to be born on a ship of any kind, but such a ship, the Mayflower itself, the flagship for the Pilgrims. And the first one is Oceanus Hopkins, who didn't live that long, apparently just 7 years. But this was the only child born on the Mayflower during the voyage across the Atlantic, and born to Stephen and Elizabeth Hopkins, born September 6th, and then passed away November, excuse me. So we're not sure of the exact birth date. And that could happen when you're on a boat. I guess the calendars maybe weren't that clear, or maybe the records weren't kept that clearly. So it was sometime between September 6th and November 9th in 1620 that this baby was born. And then the second one, Peregrine White, born November 20th. That's pretty recent. And then died July 20th, but lived much longer. And this was the first baby born on the Mayflower while it was anchored in Cape Cod, Provincetown, in the harbor at Massachusetts, born to William and Susanna White. Later, Peregrine became active in military and government affairs. And we've got a video clip, right? Or looks like we do. YouTube.
I am Susanna White, and this is my child, Peregrine. He was born on the ship Mayflower at harbor in Cape Cod after our family and other English families crossed the perilous ocean to seek a new home. We are arrived at Plymouth, where we will build houses and settle. We are newcomers in this strange and unfamiliar place. I was born in England near 27 years ago. I ne'er imagined that I would leave my native soil and country. My family and friends suffered such persecution for their religious beliefs in England that we became exiles in Holland. It was a life of many hardships, with our children carrying burdens along with their parents. Would you not wish for a better life for your children? That desire has brought us and our families to these new shores. We must strive to live in this new country. There are no towns here, no inns to refresh us. We must look to ourselves. I pray to heaven that we will survive, that my husband William and our children will thrive and prosper. May this new baby, Peregrine, be the first of many children to be born in this land. May we all be sustained through this winter and whatever else may lie ahead. by the Spirit of God and His grace. Amen.
I love that. That's so Thanksgiving. And Susanna White there, the actress portraying Susanna White, mentioned something that we're going to get to in a little bit about, if you caught it, was talking about Howland, but we'll come back to that one. But that's kind of cute. I like that little clip. It shows, gives you a flavor of what it must have been like to give birth either on the Mayflower, as was the case with Oceanus Hopkins, or in the case of Peregrine, on the Mayflower while the boat was at anchor, which is kind of strange. I mean, this is all new to me, but I know there are some genealogists that say this is not new. I've got a friend who's very into genealogy and the president of a genealogical association. And for that individual, they said, nope, they have heard of this before. But for me, totally new. I do not remember anything about this. And how about you, Shane? Do you remember this?
No, I can't say that I would, though, but I definitely don't know.
Yeah, and to me, it's kind of dramatic. Like, I never heard about any babies in the Mayflower, especially Oceanus Hopkins being born during the voyage. You'd think they would have said something in some history class or something about the Pilgrims in the Mayflower. I'm also really surprised. I didn't realize they had cell phones back in the early 1600s.
Definite Mandela effect for me.
That's a big Mandela effect for me. But yeah, these are these two children being born in that way is totally new for myself.
Likewise. Okay, let's look at the next slide, please, Heather. Thank you. And here, this is a big one for me personally. There's been a change in which day of the month or American Thanksgiving falls, because I clearly remember it was always the third Thursday. I remember it that way because I had set up one of those book of days in Chase's book calendar of events and chose International Aura Awareness Day specifically to avoid the clash with Thanksgiving. So because I knew that Thanksgiving was on the third Thursday and I check it, and every year you have to check it. So I was checking it. This is 2002. I remember back in 2002, for me personally, Thanksgiving was still happening on the third Thursday. But I told you, sometimes these things change, because now it's been like 19 years of this, and I think I noticed it really seemed like it switched maybe 8-9 years ago, and it was annoying, and then it just got increasingly more annoying. And now I'm starting to almost remember it the way collective consciousness apparently has chosen, that we want Thanksgiving close to Christmas. I don't know. How about you guys?
Well, for me, I was working when I first heard about this change. I was working at the flea market. I had a booth there, and one of the other vendors, comes up and he's like, Thanksgiving's supposed to be on the third Thursday of the month, and he's like looking at the calendar, and he's trying to plan out, his holiday shopping, his booth or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, he's like, but it was the third Thursday. And I'm like, yeah, I just look at the calendar, and I kind of blew it off like people do when you're experiencing a Mandela effect and you try to talk to him. So I was just telling Cynthia, we've all been that guy, right? She was just saying, we've all been that guy before. That just kind of blows off the change or whatever before we realize it. So somebody was experiencing the Mandela effect before I was even aware of it. And I blew it off, you know what I mean?
It can still happen to even those of us who are experiencing it, because if we didn't, like the ampersand, like I personally haven't had that one, so we could say, oh, you're wrong. But what I hope all of us are starting to do is listen more closely and recognize maybe that individual did experience ampersand. And Chris and I did see the ampersand moving around in the logo.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this Thanksgiving thing is huge. This is a good one to ask the community. And I've heard some interesting reports over the years from people who clearly had all sorts of reasons, like I did, for how it was. We had more time between Thanksgiving and Christmas. There was that extra week. Boy, I need it. I think most people need it, but now we don't have it. And when did it change for you guys? Do you remember when it switched, or were you?
Well, that was in 2016 for me. That I actually have like somebody bringing it up, because I didn't notice it wasn't. I remember hearing the third Thursday, definitely, as a kid or whatever. So that, it's kind of hard to imagine people don't remember hearing that. It was like sort of the thing to do to remember, because it moved around so much, Right. So, yeah, that's weird though.
Yeah, and if we play this this video here. I think maybe we'll just pay attention to the first 10 seconds, but it shows that we're not alone with always remembering it, that it's the third Thursday of November.
Celebrate Thanksgiving on the third Thursday in November. That's not the actual day the first Thanksgiving took place. Thanksgiving wasn't even an official holiday until 1863, 200-plus years later when Abraham Lincoln declared the first official Thanksgiving Day. It's believed that he chose this day to celebrate the Unionist Civil War victories.
Okay, so the first one was not actually the third Thursday or any of the following ones, right? According to history.
Yeah, it reminds me too, like a couple of years ago, I heard somebody on the news, on the radio, talking about like, oh, this year they decided to make Thanksgiving the fourth Thursday of the month. It's really throwing me off and all that. So a lot of people, like, they realize that there's something off, but they don't realize it's always been that way.
Nobody jumps to the supernatural right off the bat, you know what I mean? That's just crazy. That's why we're so blind to it. That's why people are so blind, because you know how fallible your memory is. I mean, anybody, you know, who's checked your memory, you know how bad it can be at times. So of course you're going to think it's that at first until something that isn't really a memory issue affects you. And then you're like, wait a minute, you know, it's like eye color or something, you know, and it's not like a memory thing. I just know my eye color and things like that. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big one for a lot of people. This
That
Thursday.
And how about the chat? This is, if people want to say what they remember in the chat, that'd be great. But I have heard from lots of people over the years, lots of reports of lots of various specific personal reasons that this is definitely a change for them. Yeah, I'm one of those. Although lately, now here's the really another cool thing about the Mandela effect. I'm starting to notice like some cover memory coming in. This is what's bizarre about the Mandela effect. Like I'm feeling now, maybe I did choose the same weekend as Thanksgiving, which makes no sense. Like I wouldn't do that, but I'm getting that kind of an overlay on it.
Yeah,
which is really weird. And
You
maybe
mean-
Do you
that
think
has to
it's
do with your
Both?
do
Is that-
you
go
feel
ahead.
like it? Do you feel like it's a two timelines that you remember, or more like a cognitive dissonance? Your brain's trying to make sense of it, type of thing. Because I know I've experienced both. You know.
Well, I have no. I would tend to think it's the timeline thing because there's no reason for me to push it one way or the other.
Well, you said a
you know,
cover memory, so I thought you meant like your brain was trying to cover for the weirdness that it was
Yeah, it
experiencing.
does.
You know what I mean?
See, I don't know. I don't really
Right.
know. I don't know which. It's chicken and egg too. Would they go together?
Right.
Probably.
Yeah. JD Peterson, sorry, my eyes are so bad, says, yes, third Thursday for Thanksgiving. Thank you. My birthday is the 21st, and I always knew Thanksgiving was the third Thursday of November. Now, suddenly, it has changed. I noticed about 5 years ago. Thank you, JD.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that was you too. 2016, about 5 years ago. Right. Interesting. So there's a huge influx, and that's right when the Mandela effect really took off for a lot of people.
I just want to add too that I feel that more and more we're going to start having more of these dual memories. Like I remember it both ways. I think I feel that timelines are collapsing and merging and so forth. So I feel that it's a phenomena that those of us that experience the Mandela effect now are also going to start experiencing. Like I kind of remember it the other way too, and I remember the way it is now. So don't be surprised if that starts to happen, is what I would say.
And it also, I think that comes with awareness of the phenomenon itself, that once you recognize this could happen, then you're okay noticing, oh yeah, I'm noticing it. So you're not taking a download or some, that almost sounds a little condescending, like the Mr. Smith effect or taking the download. Because sometimes in the community of the Mandela affected people, they talk about that, but it doesn't need to be a bad thing. It's just you're aware of that other collective consciousness bubble of reality, and it's or whatever's happening. We are social animals, and we definitely recognize people are voting apparently on these things, and that's what it almost feels like we're voting on reality.
It's funny you say that, but you're right. Exactly.
Well, if it's consciousness driven, reality is just all consciousness that's sort of driven by those within the consciousness field, and that is kind of how it works, isn't it? It's like the dominant. I mean, I guess we have our own consciousness that's, but there's definitely this collective consciousness that can be changed and altered, and our thoughts are definitely affecting it. And the changes to me seem intelligent. I mean, you can't see the intelligence in every single change, but like the names of Superman swapping, Reeve and Reeves, now they swapped, that's just that's just intelligence. You know what I mean? That way, if anybody remembered it, like one had an S and one didn't, they won't notice it. You know what I mean? But for somebody that only knew Reeves and now it's Reeve, it's it stands out.
Is it Reeve now?
Yeah, it's only Reeve, Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, that's strange to me. Yeah.
And in the original Superman, George Reeve is now George Reeves. So they're they've swapped their last names. I mean, it's complete intelligence right there when you look at it. If you can see it. I might not have even seen it if I'd known the original was George Reeve, because I didn't know his name. So I would have remembered it that way. Like, one's S, one isn't, and I would have not noticed the swap probably.
That's a good point about it being something kind of annoying that gets our attention. Like this,
right.
shortening your shopping days between Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's just annoying enough that it's like, wait a minute, didn't we used to have more time?
Right.
Yeah. And then this next one is very annoying to a lot of people too.
The annoying slides.
Next slide.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Fruit of the loom. What's going on?
I know,
thank goodness somebody was able to recreate that.
Yeah, it looks right. For those of us that do remember the cornucopia, and some people remember that's how they heard the word cornucopia to begin with. Here we have that fruit of the loom cornucopia, the way that we remember it on the left. And then I guess now it never has had that. There was never even a discussion of having a cornucopia. I don't know. Yeah, this is kind of shocking. I don't know when I first noticed this one. I think people brought it to my attention because it wasn't on my radar at the time. But as soon as they mentioned it, I thought, yeah, this is weird. It looks naked with the fruit there.
Oh, it does.
And I think I sort of, in the back of my mind, assumed they'd made a logo change and for some unknown reason, gotten rid of the little basket.
And I assumed as a kid that whatever that was in the background was the loom, and I didn't know what a loom was or anything, but I definitely remember the fruit was with something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like there's no way it was just fruit on there. It had that in the background there. That's weird.
Yeah, so it's actually it's a symbol of a goat's horn, which is interesting. It reminds me of another Mandela effect related to astrology, related to the symbol of Capricorn, because like I'm born under the symbol of Capricorn, and it always was a goat. It always was a goat. Now it's a goat fish. And I'm like, goat fish? Like what? When did that happen?
Yeah. When did you notice that switch? For me, that was like 5-6 years ago, maybe 7 around there.
Maybe 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. At the moment.
2 or 3 for me too as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was super annoyed with this one a while ago because I'm a Capricorn too, and it's like I don't think this is an improvement. How does that animal move? Like
what is it
dysfunctional anywhere?
I know. What does it mean?
Yeah, it's super strange. And then back to that fruit of the loom. Sometimes we notice that there might be a meaning in these changes. I don't know what that would mean if we go from the basket, the horn of plenty, to not a horn of plenty. But maybe the assumption is that we don't need the horn because we are. It's kind of like it's us. Like we can bring anything forth. And that's like bigger on the inside. The quantum reality is already here. To me, that's what the promise of the Mandela effect and the golden timeline actually is. That we may see things change, but sometimes like it went from mirror on the wall. Now it's magic mirror to remind us about the magic again. So a lot of these seem like indicators, like you are the magic, you are the cornucopia, the horn of plenty. It seems like a hint of, very subtle one.
Or even like, more of an infinite, it's limitless now that we don't have to confine it to this cornucopia. Now we have a limitless amount of space for all of the fruit, the abundance of fruit we're going to have.
Exactly.
That's kind of what Cynthia was saying,
And how it's that symbol of plenty or a symbol of abundance, and how like we're all striving to have more abundance in our life. Mm-hmm. And, those types of concepts, which I think also is coming, because I think it's also a natural thing as you begin to become more aware of what reality is. you naturally attract abundance. So, yeah.
It also reminds me of a scripture, Jesus saying, to look at the fruit, to check the fruit of the, what are the fruits of, your labors, basically. So it's kind of putting the focus on not the container, but the fruit, the harvest itself. So that's kind of an interesting way of looking at it.
I love that. And it reminds me too of speaking of fruit, it reminds me of shopping, and you don't go shopping for what you don't want to buy. Like, you don't bring definitely don't get this list. And so it's nice to remind us to stay focused on what we do want, to keep, because we are the creators. So focusing on that golden timeline, on how good can I get, how good can we get, how good can it get, then we're aiming onward and upward. And yeah, it's definitely very spiritual too. And speaking of shopping, let's go to our next slide, because I think this is super cool. Love it very much.
Why?
Yeah, it won't be Thanksgiving without remembering what used to be stovetop stuffing. I sure remember that.
One of the things too, if you go to the grocery store now, I went to the grocery store the other day, you see the big display of stovetop stuffing. Guess what they're not putting on the package anymore? Craft. Yeah, it doesn't say, well, I always remember it said Stouffer's, but it used to say craft, and now all the stovetops, just like you see in the image there, they've completely removed craft at the top, because I think maybe somebody got the hint. Maybe somebody saw How To with John Wilson and were like, oh, maybe we should take the Stouffer's people might wind up suing us or something, because so many people remember it being a Stouffer's product and not a craft product. But it was always a craft product since it was created in 1971, which is really interesting. And this is one of those things I call it a timeline brand takeover. And I have a whole theory about like how that happened, why that happened, and I'll disclose that at some point in the future. But it's really interesting, because this is one of those Mandela effects that a lot of people that are familiar with or have heard of Stouffer's stovetop stuffing, they know about it. So it's like, how do you come up with a name like Stouffer's stovetop stuffing? Like, you just make that up out of nowhere? That's like a mass misremembering by like millions upon millions of people. So it's like the Ricky Ricardo thing. Like, you've got some splaining to do on the I Love Lucy show. How would you know to put in that word splaining without having heard it?
Exactly. It's the made up word.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, why are we all saying it that way?
Right. Why are we all making up the same word? It's hilarious. It's kind of like the chicken leg in the Henry VIII painting, or the turkey leg or whatever, perfect, for Thanksgiving or whatever. But why would we always all remember the same item? I would have never chose that as an item to remember in his hand had it not actually been a turkey leg, because it looked ridiculous to me as a kid. It makes more sense as an adult, but as a kid, he's like all looking like a king and he's holding this, you know what I mean? I don't know, it just didn't look right. And now it's gloves or something, right?
Well, getting back to the timeline, I think it is gloves. It has that one changed?
It was a chalice. It became a chalice, and now it looks like he's holding gloves. Yeah, exactly.
Right. That's so ridiculous.
Gosh.
Yeah.
And
it was sort of the centerpiece of it. I mean, I guess he was supposed to be, but I always was drawn to that turkey leg in his hand. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's ridiculous looking.
Exactly.
And what is it now? It's gloves now. But
yeah,
it looks like it looks like he's holding his gloves, like a pair of white gloves in his hand. Which is,
I wonder what it's going to be next.
Yeah.
And getting back to, go ahead.
I was going to say, getting back to the slide. No, this particular. So that image at the bottom is from when we did the show How To with John Wilson, which the HBO show, which probably some people here that are watching this now have watched that show as well. So I just wanted to recall something that when I was at the grocery store with John Wilson and his crew, we were talking, I was showing him about the stovetop stuffing, and the store manager comes over for the local store here called Stop and Shop. And she's like, what are you guys doing here? Blah, blah, blah. And she was trying to explain to me that Kraft bought Stouffer's. So we had this, I wish that John Wilson included that in the show, because she was like, no, you don't understand. Yes, it was Stouffer's, but recently Kraft bought them out. And I'm like, no, since 19, you can look it up, since 1971, it's been Stouffer. So we had like a little, not an argument, but we had a really good discussion about it. Of course, that wasn't in the show, but in any event, it just goes to show how people in their minds will come up with reasons for it.
Because that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You try to justify it.
Yeah.
Like me with the Berenstein Bears books in my house. I thought someone stole them and replaced them with bad copies of Berenstein. Yeah, because your mind tries to go there. So
you just didn't know it was the universe.
You didn't know it was the universe. Exactly. So just wanted to throw that out there too.
That is super cool. I love that. It would be nice to see the outtakes. Maybe John Wilson saved some of that. I know he's got lots more footage than he used. And he seems like the kind of guy that's very OCD about saving everything, looking at his journals on his shelf. So
it's finding it that would probably be the challenge, you know.
Oh yeah, no, he seems organized. So I'm sure maybe at some point there might be some outtakes, and we can say that and put the word out there. Vote for outtakes from How to Improve Your Memory episode on How To with John Wilson on HBO. Yeah, but the other thing about this timeline takeover, this would be a very difficult case to fight for because the evidence is only in our memories. And, you know, so.
I don't know. You get a jury of 12 people that remembered enjoying Stouffer stovetop. It might
Absolutely.
be like, I don't know what's happening, but you guys stole it. You know what I mean?
That would be one confused jury, let me tell you. That would be one. If you pick the right people, if you pick people what's his name that we did the show with the other month, Tom Campbell. If you pick people like Tom Campbell, he's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. He's like, I don't buy stuffing. So he didn't have any recollection about Stouffers. Right. So you want to make sure you pick a jury that's at least gone to the grocery store before, that's familiar with these items. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these corporate cases are not typically juried cases that I know of, but it's an interesting idea. It's fun.
Yeah, my recollection was as a kid though with Stouffers, so I have a lot of.
Me too. You know, I remember the TV ads because Stouffer stovetop stuffing. It's just
it's all together in my mind. You know, almost as a single word stored in my mind. It's like, why would my brain put Stouffers in front of it if it never has been there?
It was one of the strongest brand imprints I've ever heard of.
Absolutely.
There's Kraft macaroni and cheese, but Stouffers. Right. I would never think Kraft. In fact, if you'd asked me who is it. Now, I would never have guessed Kraft. I wouldn't have even known.
No.
It sounds so wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cheesy now.
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing? Yeah. I think it tasted better in my old timeline. No, seriously, because I think the other year for Thanksgiving we had Kraft stovetop stuffing and it didn't taste as good. So I'm just throwing that out there.
It's not the same thing.
It's not. It doesn't sound like the same thing.
They couldn't get the recipe before they nabbed it.
Exactly.
Funny. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Let's go back, time traveling back. So here we are with the Pilgrims. Now, we had mentioned that little film clip that we showed, if everyone remembers, there was a snippet where the woman was talking about how she had spent some time, where? In Holland. And, you know, that's kind of strange because to me, this is news. And again, I ran it past my genealogist friend who said not news to her. But to me, very big news that Pilgrim spent at least 10 years in Holland. Now, this is the kind of thing I think you could win money on this one on bets if you're that kind of a person. Just ask people, you know, how many years did the Pilgrim spend, you know, or not, don't even say years because I just, that to me right there is just wild. Is this news for you too, you guys?
That's wild. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the fact that they went to Holland that long, big news, big news.
Yeah, and then because immediately I want to know why. What the heck happened? It was just like, why would they do that? It's hard enough to move once back in those days, not to mention to make this staggered journey with a 10-year delay. But these Pilgrims left England and first went to live in Holland back in 1607. And I don't understand why, but 13 years later they came to America. What's this thing about Stink Alley Leiden? You know, what's going on with that?
It's kind of yeah, isn't that funny? There's a section of Holland called Stink Alley, which is where this is the area where when they left England, they lived there for 13 years. And there was a book written about it and so forth. So yeah, a lot of us remember them leaving directly from Plymouth, England, to come to the United States. The whole thing about their excursion into Holland for this amount of time is news for a lot of people, including
that's the part that's weird for me. Yeah.
And what was the reasoning? That's what's so strange. Like, why on earth would anyone go somewhere else when you have a destination in mind, let alone Stink Alley?
It was closer. There was less Indians. Food was a little bit easier to get, I think. But it's funny too, because when you look at the history, the Pilgrims, the first option they wanted to go to was Guyana in South America, which I didn't even know about before. And then their second option was the colony of Virginia. They didn't have any plans to go to Cape Cod or that area, the Provincetown area. So all of these things are like new inserts into the whole Pilgrims, Mayflower, Thanksgiving story.
And this was not about religious freedom, but more business and financial security. So this is also odd. It's like, wow, very strange.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
And so then there's a bit of a dark time. The Indians in that area did not like the Europeans. Now that area being, now we're talking about America, of course. We're not back in Holland. Because they didn't want to be taken as slaves or sold in Europe. So when the Mayflower was anchored, the Indians attacked. This is so this may be news to some people. And go ahead and leave comments if this is new to you. And we do have a video clip here. Do I want to play part or all of it?
It's about 30 seconds, so we can.
We can roll it.
I had departed the English port of Plymouth in September 1620, bound for the colony of Virginia. Of the 102 passengers on board, 37 were Puritan separatists who intended to establish a new settlement in the New World. The rest were servants, farmers, adventurers and tradesmen who were there to support the fledgling colony.
Yes, if you notice at the beginning of that clip, he said that they left from Plymouth, England. No, no, they didn't. They left from Holland. They left from Stink Alley.
But see, that's what's so bizarre. I don't remember the Stink Alley thing at all. I mean, have you ever heard of that, Shane? Or is this...
Oh, no, definitely. That what you were just reading or playing, that seems more familiar, from Plymouth Rock to America without the delay. This other thing just sounds like a completely different story to me from what I learned. Unless my teacher was lazy and he's like, hey, they left there and they showed up there, and she left out a bunch. 13
years in Holland, who cares about that? Blah blah blah. They're going to go to South America first. That didn't work out. So they wanted to go to Virginia. Oops, the boats calculated and landed in Cape Cod.
This is wild. And so on that slide, there's a book, the House on Stink Alley. So there's actually a book that people can read, I guess, about this whole subject. That sounds fascinating. But it seems like this whole chapter of history that I'd never heard about. And it's so interesting. It's interesting from many facets, actually. The standpoint of the Dutch, who were probably wondering, why are these people here? What are they doing? Are they provisioning the ship?
Yeah, that's what Benjamin in the chat is saying. They needed supplies and help, so Howland set them up.
Okay, and from that standpoint, it starts to make sense, because the Dutch
13
really
years.
were. Well, that's odd. Okay, I would never think it would take 13 years to find a crew in Holland, because those people are multilingual. I think most average Dutch citizens to this day speak like 5 or 6 languages, no problem. And in that time period, I think most of them were, there were many seafaring people that would be easily comfortable, but maybe they didn't want to relocate. So maybe that's but 13 years. Yeah, that's just slow by any standard.
Yeah, not just that too, but we go a little bit further into this too. There's the topic of what's called saints and strangers, so that people understand too, it wasn't just like the Puritan pilgrims that were on there, but there were others on there as well, adventurers, business people, etc. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's all just fascinating new stuff that's coming out.
Really interesting. So let's move it along to another slide. And here we've got an animal that we all recognize, the American turkey. And I did not know that they almost went extinct. This was totally new for me. But they are the symbol of abundance. I think they were voted, at least one person thought that they should be the national bird. Was that Benjamin Franklin?
I think it was.
Yeah, and because they have a great character. They actually are wonderful animals. They're a symbol of abundance. They can fly. We've got some here in the Bay Area in California. I see them, little flocks of them occasionally. So prior to the arrival of European colonists, there were believed to be about 10 million wild turkeys in the U.S. I did not know that before this. This led to exploitation and unregulated hunting, as Americans thought they would never run out, similar to what happened with the bison and the buffalo. So they went from their original population estimated at 10 million down to 100,000, or maybe, roughly that by 1920. So that means all of my life, they've just been at this 100,000 point. Not only that, but in the 1950s, the net cannon helped bring them back. Good. Well, to me, this whole thing about them going extinct is different and new. I feel like I would have heard about that, and I never heard anything.
Yeah,
buffalo, sure. Turkeys, no.
Yeah, the fact that the American wild turkey, like the numbers dwindled so much, is like definitely news for me as well. And this thing about the net cannon. So they were trying to figure out ways to bring the wild turkey population back again. But wild turkeys are really, really hard to catch. Like, they're really hard to catch. And they also, so the plan was to try to catch wild turkeys and put them in areas where they could thrive and grow and, bring their population back. But the people couldn't catch them. So this net cannon was something that came in that actually allowed this to happen. Before that, though, the other idea was they would take turkey eggs. So the turkey hen would lay the eggs, they'd bring the eggs someplace to hatch. The problem is, without a mother hen, the turkeys were unsuccessful for whatever reason. They needed like the mother to like show them what to do. So this net cannon that they came out with in the 1950s was the thing that really helped bring the population back. And there is a short video about that we can watch of someone using a net cannon to catch a wild turkey.
Oh, let's see.
And so what I need to attempt to do is get something that I can use as bait or prey. But with that said, I'm not out here to actually kill anything. So I've got this net gun with me, which shoots a very soft net and is completely harmless to the animal. A distress call that I can then project into the bush. I can let the prey species go unharmed. Perfect. He's completely unharmed, completely uninjured.
So there you go. You can't catch a wild turkey, but you can use a net cannon.
That's super cool. Interesting. Now, I don't remember any of this, and it's fascinating part of Thanksgiving Mandela Effect history. Yeah. Anything else we want to add about the turkeys? The cannon's pretty cool. I can
Back
see
up
that
to 7
being
million,
useful.
it says. Yeah, that's cool.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's they're never. And here where I live, the turkeys just sort of roam wherever they want to go. So they wander in and out of the park and down neighborhood streets. Sometimes you just see them wherever they feel like going. And
We've got them here too in Connecticut. Yeah, where in the neighborhood that I live, there's always like wild turkeys walking around. And the other day, 2 days in a row, like I take some back roads to come to my office, and there are these 2 wild turkeys that are just hanging out on the road, the same spot for the last couple of days. So yeah, it's good to see their population come back and them to really thrive.
That is good. Okay, let's go to our next slide where we've got, this is interesting. Now, there was a particular passenger, John Howland, from the Mayflower, and he was an indentured servant, and he almost flipped overboard during a storm, but miraculously grabbed a rope on his way into the sea. That's a pretty darn exciting adventure. So he lived, got married, had a number of children who continued a lineage, including Ralph Waldo Emerson, Humphrey Bogart, the movie star, Dr. Spock, who wrote the children's book about how to raise children, Anthony Perkins, Chevy Chase, Alex Baldwin. That's a pretty substantial list of descendants. And at least 9 U.S. presidents, wow, could follow their genealogy to Howland, including Franklin D. Roosevelt, George Bush Sr. and George Bush Jr. At least 2 first ladies, Edith Roosevelt and Barbara Bush, were also descendants of Howland. So I guess the question is, does anyone remember all of this? Or it seems striking to me that there'd be this strong a connection with all these presidents, first ladies. That's unusual, but I think maybe there's something going on here. Any thoughts? Any conjecture from you, gentlemen?
I would add that there's actually something called I think it's called the John Howland Society, or the Howland Society, made up of all of these people that are descendants of John Howland. So it's not just these famous people. There's a lot of people that, you know, descended from John Howland. It's really interesting too. What I found interesting is that when I first started doing some of the research onto, you know, putting together this Thanksgiving special, you know, the Mayflower trip, the Pilgrims and all that, this had never come up. And then halfway through my research, all of a sudden, oh, there's this story about how this one person on the Mayflower almost died. And they were miraculously saved because there happened to be a rope where they flipped overboard during a storm or something like that. So to me, it's almost like a Mandela effect that appeared during putting this information together. So I wanted to, for me anyway. So I don't know if anyone else heard about the story of John Howland almost dying on the Mayflower and all that. And you can imagine what would have happened if he did. Like all these famous people we wouldn't have in our reality. So we're fortunate that rope was there to make, you know, just so that our history is preserved. So it's a fascinating story. And it's one of those things like the babies. You think you would have heard about the babies. You think you would have heard about this one guy miraculously being saved by a rope, being thrown overboard in a storm. It's just all these little details that you'd think would have reached some part of, you know, the story of the Pilgrims coming over that I had never heard about before.
And it's so hard for me to know because I drew a lot in class and didn't pay a lot of attention. So for me, the Mandela effects that, like, when I see something like leave the logo of my underwear, I notice it. You know what I mean? Or Stokers. Benjamin, or let's see, who was it here, was saying the slogan. Does anyone, Teresa Richards, does anyone else remember the slogan? If it's not Stofers, it's not stuffing.
I remember if it's not
sounds
Stofers,
familiar.
If it's not Stofers, it's not Thanksgiving. That's what I remember.
Nice.
I could see them playing on that at Thanksgiving time, though. You know what I mean? Where it was year round. Maybe they said the stuffing
It sounds
one, but
vaguely
then,
familiar. This,
yeah.
if it's not Stofers, it's not stuffing.
And I'll add to that, because I did some research onto that a while ago. I found a commercial from, like, I don't know, 1997 or something. That was a commercial for stovetop stuffing. Doesn't mention Kraft anywhere, but that slogan says, if it's not stovetop, it's not Thanksgiving. And I'm like, no, that's wrong. It was always, if it's not Stofers, it's not Thanksgiving.
Oh
So
my gosh.
you can see how those things could be like, oh, you're just misremembering. But it's like, no. And then when you see the old commercial, I'm like, that's not how they said it. And then when I was going through my customers' inventory databases, because for those of you that don't know, like I have a business that creates software for food distribution. So being around food and getting products to grocery stores and restaurants is something that I've done for a while. So when I was researching the whole Stofers thing, I was looking at my customers' inventory files, because customers were saying, like, you know, your software has a bug in it. You know, it keeps changing Stofers to Kraft. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And one of my customers' inventory file, because like when you, in our inventory system, we have all these different fields you can set up. One is the brand name. The brand that some people had, it didn't say Kraft, it didn't say Stofers, it said Stovetop. They made the brand Stovetop. So it's just like all weird. It's all strange. It's all over the place. But no, our software is not changing your inventory from Stofers to Kraft. It's a timeline change. So.
And when did you notice those changes, Chris?
I noticed them. I would probably say it was 2017, 2018, right around the time when I saw the whole JFK assassination thing change for me. Yeah, like boom, 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 all these things are happening. Customers were calling because they were saying, there's problems with your reporting system. It should show this and it shows this instead. And our techs would spend like literally hours and days with clients logging onto their server, like checking all their stuff and confirming that our software was correct, So for me, it was definitely like 2017, 2018.
Because you had a lot of weird stuff happening where like the software and the paperwork aligned, but the people's memory was like, I've ordered 93 of these for like the last year. Now it's saying I've always ordered 108. But so their memory was in conflict with the software and the paperwork, not your software and the paperwork.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. The reporting. Yeah. We have this reporting and dashboard system that would show them visually or numerically on reports and so forth. And a lot of my customers, like they're pretty sharp. They're very sharp. Like they can remember item numbers for like 5,000 items in their inventory file. Like they're right on it. Right. So for them to be like, your reports are wrong. Like we give that a lot of credence because these guys are pretty smart. So, and then we could prove to them like what the data said matched what the report said, but didn't match their memory. They'd scratch their head and sometimes they'd still like debate it, but eventually they'd have to be like, all right, the software is correct. So.
Yeah. Welcome to the world of the Mandela Effect, right?
Yes, exactly.
Now at least you know what to tell them. Like, oh no, everything's cool. Just go look at the Mandela Effect. You'll see what it is.
Yeah, well, this is such a cool slide about the lifeline and just all these lives that we're able to continue on thanks to that magical moment. And again, if there's a symbol here, to me, it's like a golden timeline. It's a lifeline. It's this very clear reminder with this case of John Howland that all of us are connected to one another, that when we see a change like this, I think this is a reminder to me too of the relationships that matter so much in life. And that's part of our Thanksgiving in America, is honoring our gratitude for one another, our gratitude for being here with one another. And this is just a classic Mandela effect right here. Totally new for me. Maybe my history books just left out all the good stuff. I don't know.
Feels that way sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. Okay, we got one more Thanksgiving slide, if I'm not mistaken. Let's go to the next slide, the last slide before Q&A. And this is getting into the Pilgrim Mandela Effect. So Pilgrims were, and maybe Chris, you want to carry this because you were mentioning the saints and strangers, and this, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a kind of a misperception where, the Pilgrim, the Mayflower landed and the Pilgrims got off the boat and they made friends with the Indians and they had this big feast of turkey and something stovetop stuffing and whatever it was. But the historical record shows it was a little more edgier than that. That's even why when baby Peregrine was born on the Mayflower, when it was docked, they were too nervous she didn't want to give birth on land because they were afraid of what the Indians might do, especially when you're vulnerable like that. So the whole history of the Pilgrims is very different from what I was always taught. And part of that could be Mandela effects. Part of that could be, just softening it and making it more appealable for people. National Geographic did like a short movie series called Saints and Strangers. I think it was back in 2012, something like that, to kind of make it more like real as to what happened. So maybe what we could do is play that clip. It's just a few moments, but it kind of paints more of a picture of the Pilgrims and who were the saints and who were the strangers on the boat.
Historically, the religious separatists were called the saints, and the merchant adventurers were known as strangers. What most people don't know in history, that those were the two groups that came onto the Mayflower, the saints and the strangers.
Have you been below deck, Mr. Martin? I have not. It is vile. Mayflower was never meant to carry passengers. It is a cargo ship meant for wine and woolens, not women and children.
We all must make do.
The Mayflower picked up what is basically an ostracized religious sect
who were, even in their day, deemed as fundamentalists.
I have been abroad in the world seeking my fortune, not hiding in Holland up with my Bible.
You go too far, sir.
The Saints are the people who were basically separatists of the Church of England. They believed that they were holy and in the right. They weren't adventurers. They weren't warriors. They certainly weren't seamen. They were just regular folk.
Everyone sort of understands the idea that they were seeking religious freedom, but I think what we don't usually get in school is that they weren't all religious pilgrims. There was opportunists, looking for a better life, and they happened to share a boat. Within the group of the pilgrims, there were a lot of different opinions, a lot of different belief systems.
We are bound together in this venture, Mr. Hopkins, your people and ours. We need to make a common cause for a better life for all of us.
Common cause? With us? With those that you call strangers?
The strangers were more adventure seekers, and they are opportunists. They're people who are looking for riches in the New World. They want to come here and have an empire. And I don't think any of them were foolish enough to think they would have an empire, but for their children's children too.
It's a wonderful sort of visceral melting pot. That was the birth of America.
Saints and Strangers is a story about the complexities with the factions of people within, people who are Puritans and people who are adventurers, people who are looking for opportunity, and how invariably you need each other to survive.
See, to me, this would be like a cool show to watch for Thanksgiving, because you kind of get like an idea of what actually happened in this particular timeline between what they call the Saints and the Strangers. And I don't know if anyone caught this or not, but at the beginning, one of the clips, one of the guys said, I wasn't in Holland hiding out, with my Bible, so to speak. So even here, like in this timeline, it's pretty clear they came from Holland. They were originally from England, going to Holland for 13 years, and then came here. So it's just so interesting when you see all of this information. And, part of what the slide goes on to talks about Miles Standish, who came over with the Pilgrims, wasn't necessarily the nicest guy out there. I'll just mention one thing where there was a certain time, there was a peace gathering where Miles Standish got a group of the Indian leaders together for a peace dinner, locked all the doors, attacked one of the Indians whose name was Chief Widawamut, stabbed him to death, cut off his head, put it on a pole, etc. So there is definitely some tensions going on between the Nauset Indian tribe. There's a whole, in Provincetown, there's a monument called the First Encounter, which happened on December 8th of 1620, where the Pilgrims had their first encounter with the Native Americans at that time, which was more of like a fight between both of them. I don't think anyone died at that time, but it just shows a different type of historical record than a lot of us remember, that I at least remember. Also, too, in that clip, it mentioned Squanto. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Squanto before, but Squanto was like a famous Indian because he was originally taken as a slave, brought back to Europe, learned to speak English, and then he came back to America and became like a famous Indian. I don't know the whole Squanto story, but I saw him in there. But I remember because there was a slave trade going on. It was a real thing, and a lot of times people just think of Africans being sold into slavery. It wasn't. They were selling American Indians into slavery as well. So it's a part of our history that I think if we become more aware of, we can learn from it and not repeat those same mistakes.
I liked the closing line in that video snippet about we need each other. So that's such a positive note to bring into Thanksgiving holiday. And I agree with you, Chris. It would be good to be mindful going forward. It seems like we've mentioned this on other open tables. There seem to be other atrocities and massacres that some of us don't remember at all. And this one, parts of it I have heard of. And that's why there's been a pressure from some groups to remove Columbus as a holiday and make it Indigenous Peoples Day and so forth. But as far as the specifics of this, it wasn't taught this clearly in my history books at all. it would be good to be clear about what has happened. So as far as the Mandela effect aspect, hard to say, because I think there was a lot of whitewashing or something of the history books. So it's interesting. Yeah. How about you guys? Anything about the Mandela effect here that's something different?
Well, actually, to kind of dovetail on what you were saying, Cynthia, I was like looking at my, I remember the Columbus Day thing and Indigenous Peoples Day thing on my calendar because I use Google Calendar on my phone. And then, so I was looking at, you know, when Thanksgiving was, and I saw that Black Friday is Native American Heritage Day. Have you guys heard of that one?
Oh, no.
Okay, so this was new to me. This might be like a brand new Mandela effect. I wanted to ask you guys. I figured we can ask everybody because at first I'm like, well, I remember, but wasn't that near Columbus Day? And then I checked the calendar and we do have that Indigenous Peoples Day, but now the day after Thanksgiving now, Black Friday, it says we have Native American Heritage Day. So that's new to me. I don't remember that, but I checked and it's on the schedule for last year. So evidently it's been around. I think we might have found the Mandela effect in real time here. So now we have two Indigenous Peoples Days, one specifically for Indigenous people, but then one for Native Americans, which is Black Friday. So happy Native American Day Friday. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Okay. Any other thoughts on this last slide? So we can move forward and open it up to questions and answers.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, and there was one I missed. There was one I missed earlier.
Okay, yeah.
That I wanted to bring up. Let's see. This one from Overprotected 1111. The Beatles released their first albums and were introduced as a distraction the day JFK was assassinated.
What?
Do you guys know about this? What a
They
synchronicity that
No.
muzzled Beatles at the beginning. Ha ha ha. So,
Oh my gosh, no. Was that just in
Interesting.
America? Or was this
I'm not sure. I'd have to look more into that, but that sure is interesting.
What an amazing connection.
Yeah. But it kind of ties in with, you know, things
Right.
being manipulated with time. And because I've been looking at, you know, the nodes, like everything creating node points, and you see all these things happening where they try to combine two things, you know, like, you know, maybe it's a good holiday, but then something bad happened on that day and it kind of muddies the water or creates a connection node there, you know. So it kind of follows that Chris's idea of like timeline insertions, positive or negative, but like in real time, you know.
Yeah, that's I find that really interesting. I'll just say something too. If anybody, there's a certain mystery I'm trying to solve because there's this song that always comes up on the radio for me all the time, but I can't figure out why it's coming up for me. But it's by Frankie Valli, and it's December of '63. What a special time for me. What a lady, what a night. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that song before.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So December of '63 was like a week or two after JFK was shot. But for some reason, that song always comes up. If anyone out there knows what could have happened in December of '63, the thing about the Beatles is really interesting that that's the same day that they released their album and so forth. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's a random thing, but I've been racking my brain trying to figure out why does that song always come up for me. So just saying.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, I want to encourage you guys to put your questions in the chat and we'll bring them up here. You
And
can put them in
comments are
caps
good
and make it
too.
easy
That was
for
a-
my eyes.
That was a good comment too from Overprotected. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Okay, so that slogan, I was reading that again. If it's not stuffers, it's not stuffing. And that sure sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I was going to mention too that if anyone has any Christmas Mandela effects that they want to let us know about, because when we do our Christmas special, we'd love to share whatever, man, because there's so many like Christmas songs that have changed, lyrics have changed, and this has changed and that changed. So definitely let us know. You can send an email to team@imec.world and let us know what your favorite Christmas Mandela effects are, and we could possibly include them in our show and discuss them in a little bit more detail.
They seem to change a lot for me as I look every Christmas. I start going over the ones from the previous Christmas and they're like all different. It's like, oh gosh, got to redo Christmas every year. What's going on?
Yeah. We could bring up another big one is that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer animated special. Yeah, it's the monster, the abominable snow monster, and various aspects of that. That's a good one.
Or the 12 days of Christmas, right? My true love blank to me. What's the answer? What do you remember?
Gave to me.
Gave, definitely.
It wasn't sent? I think in this time.
I think it's sent in this timeline. Yeah.
In this timeline, I think it's
actually, I think last year it was only in the UK that they remember it sent, and then it was back to Gave in the United States.
Okay.
So it's that's one of the ones that changed the whole.
That could be a flip flopper there. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those.
So yeah, we got some research to do before this one because we get to see what's changed.
Like
surprise.
The rate, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and then Common and Blitzen, and I think some of the reindeer names have changed. So I'll have to look into that one too.
Yeah.
That's one that I
Dasher
remember.
and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen. Yeah, Comet and Cupid and Donder and Blitzen.
Donder.
But do you
Donder's the one
recall?
that's one.
Oh, Donder. Okay.
Famous
Yeah. I can't remember what.
Yeah.
Maybe the spelling of it changed, or no? It's a
That
completely
could
different name, isn't it? It seems like it
Oh,
might
is
be.
it really?
Yeah, Donder switched to something else.
See, I remember the lyrics from the song Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah.
It
So,
helps.
so that's a little taste of what we have next month. All right. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah. And I love the Symphony of Reality series. Those are going along really well too. Very pleased with how we can tie these things in. And Shane, you did a great video too recently.
Thank
just
you.
recently.
Yeah, I did a really short video that you guys can check out. And I loved your follow up with Tom Campbell. That was wonderful, and I agree with you so much. So I invite anybody who hasn't, or if you haven't seen the Tom Campbell one, to check that one out, and then follow up with Cynthia's video, because I really liked how she pointed out a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, I think we should make like a little mini-sode of just the section where we asked Tom those 10 questions. That would be cool, just to see the answer to them. Yeah.
That would be good.
We should do that. That'd be cool.
The mini-sode idea is a great one.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that one. Raider Champion is asking also where Santa's workshop is. So I think it's like on a boat out in the water. Well, at the North Pole, right?
Better, at least it's not an oil rig, right?
Right.
That would wreck the whole thing. What is this?
Oh, is that what it is? There's a D in Donner now? Oh, maybe that's what it is. Donder instead of Donner?
It's Donder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
do you
I'm
remember
looking at
that?
it right now. It's
The Donner
Blitzen,
changed to
Comet,
Donder.
Cupid, Dasher, Dancer, Donder, Prancer, Rudolph, of course, and Vixen.
Wow. So did you remember it with the D or not, Cynthia?
I sang it, so we've got it on tape.
Oh.
I think I sang Donder, but remember, I get both. So
Right.
I think I do remember Donner, and then at some point it changed to Donder, so I sing it the way people sing it.
Yeah.
That means that one changed. These have been going on for a long time, way before 2016 for me. That one
yeah.
changed a long time ago.
That's a good point too, because we'll hear it and then we'll just correct ourselves and go with a new way. And
I'm just going with Donder because it's switched.
Yeah.
But I didn't even point that out when I sang it, so that's cool. So it's Donder now, but it used to be Donner. Yeah, Donner sounds better. When it changed, it was like, what the heck?
Well, because people reuse Christmas decorations every year, there's a lot of residue. People will pull their stuff out and it didn't get updated for whatever reason. You're like, what's going on, universe? You're not Mandela affecting my Christmas stuff?
Oh, I just thought of a Christmas one. Do you know the movie Elf with Will Ferrell, the comedian?
Yeah.
So one of my sons, my oldest son, would watch that movie since it came out every year. He'd watch that movie. And then and I would kind of watch it in the background, not really pay too much attention to it. Near the beginning of the movie, there's a scene with a narwhal. Now, for a lot of people, narwhals are new into the reality. So the narwhal is the whale that has the long protrusion that comes out.
A unicorn whale.
Like a unicorn. Unicorn of the sea. Yeah, exactly. And I always thought they were mythical creatures. And now there's a scene at the beginning of Elf where Will Ferrell he has a conversation with a narwhal. And so that's I never saw that before. So narwhals are in the reality, and Will Ferrell in that movie, he talks to a narwhal for a little while. So that's kind of a Mandela effect for myself.
Yeah, plus Farrell's last name changed for a lot of people. That's actually in our book, our Mandela Effect book. So write it down how you remember it and then look it up and see what you remember, because I can't remember either way right now.
Yeah, having those two meanings.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I think we went over half hour, but we're rounding it out at the top of the hour. Pretty good. So
Yeah, in 10 seconds will be exactly 2 hours.
I'm looking to see if there's any other questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you for checking.
Oh, Andy is saying JFK wore a top hat now. New Mandela Effect video from Recall.
Really?
Check that one out.
He wore a top hat. Wow.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
In a video I made, I talk about his little sister named Kick Kennedy,
right?
that I had never heard of before. That was a Mandela Effect for myself. So many JFK stuff coming through.
Oh yeah.
There's this strong Kennedy connection coming through with all these related. It's like related to the hairball of timelines and a big player in what's going on. Yeah, and the Beatles too. So you're right. It's like there are some certain players that are involved in what's happening.
Fa Q says, "Mom and Dad are Santa, sad but true." So is it a revelation of truth? Is like do the kids pull out the the map and they look up where Santa's castle should be at the North Pole, and they're like, wait a minute, it's water there. I think Mom and Dad are fibbing at us here. So maybe it's the Mandela Effect's a revelation of truth for the kids to see. There's no Santa up there. Unless you're watching right now, kids. I'm sorry if I've ruined anything.
Yeah, but I remember the North Pole having snow and reindeer, and Santa's workshop was up in the snow, the little snowy sign and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Awesome. Well, I guess what we if there's nothing else, what we might want to do is make sure to let people know we have a tentative date. We're going to confirm the date and time, but this Christmas special we're talking about, we're targeting Tuesday, December 21st for that very special episode of Open Tables. Is there anything else you gentlemen would like to say? Any other comments from the chat? If not, we can wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving with lots of good wishes for yourselves and your household and everyone and everything you love. Wishing all the best for all of you going forward. And check out the things that we mentioned. Definitely check out the special with Patreon that we have. And there should be a link in this video to that as well.
Absolutely.
Happy holidays, and catch you in about a month.
All right. Bye, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.